Alright, final dungeon. The actual canonical final dungeon. Not like the weird fake final dungeon that Gotham made. The actual final dungeon of Crossworlds. What are we thinking?
I'm also bracing myself for entering this, but for a completely different reason.
That's probably wise. It's not really possible to have played literally any amount of this and reach this point and not be bracing just a tiny bit. And the thing about it isn't just us. This is actually, like, canonically what's happening. This is like some kind of narrative design going on here. It's kind of incredible. Crossworlds as a game is kind of unbelievably boring, and yet they've got our hype perfectly in sync with the entire player base. This must, once again, be that writing thing that I keep hearing about. Anyway, everyone's here. I'm pretty sure literally every single possible player name is represented in this pile. I think there might not even be any repeats. I think this might literally be all of them.
I liked Not a Smurf. That's, you can tell that guy has had to, defend himself from accusations before.
That guy's username is raising a lot of questions already answered by the username. Oh wait, we can talk to Lucas first? Hang on. No, not that Lucas. Why can't we walk up to him? So you remember how we can get ascended equipment, technically, at this point, except we actually can't really get any of it. The result is that, strictly speaking, we are underleveled as hell for this. But there's not really a whole lot that we can do about it. I mean, we could buy the cross gear, I guess, but that would be boring. But, like, even the highest level stuff that we have is like,
Yeah, we're only still getting about halfway there, even by equipping the best super bullshit stuff we have from the end game.
The good news is this doesn't matter. We're gonna roll with this anyway. And my focus build is gonna carry us. And the best thing about my focus build is, like I said before, because it goes so heavily in on focus at the expense of everything else, it makes things kind of spicy. Which is how we like it. Alright everybody, fulfill your duty as a seeker and uncover the lost secret of the ancients when Kulero Temple launches later today. Thank you for watching this presentation. Don't all crash the servers now. Alright. Finally. Here we go. First order of business. We're not really anywhere on the map. They've just created this little graphic off to the side that holds this place.
That seems like an odd decision, given that, you know, it is literally, like we're in Sapphire Ridge.
But we're not. That's just the entry point. That's just where the teleporter is. Apparently, that whole building in Sapphire Ridge is pretty much only exists to hold the teleporter. The actual dungeon is somewhere else. Alright, this is it. This is what we paid for. It's time for an all-new dungeon with an all-new gimmick. And it's time after, oh, I don't know, 40 to 50 hours of game, this entire story chapter. But no, it's here. We finally made it. We are about to finally witness peak CrossCode. At last. Did you notice how many different interactions we showed with this little floating blob? I hope you did, because we're not done with them yet. Whoops. Yeah, we've got options with these. Also, they take a little bit to teach us something very important. You can reset them. This might be handy later. Okay, did you memorize all that? It will be on the test. I really hope you did.
I mean, this isn't really new.
Ah, whatever. It's boss time.
This is just every gimmick that we've had in one blob.
Well, in that it has an interaction with all four elements, and also with neutral. But we've never really had a thing that's behaved exactly like this. We've had a lot of things that have a lot of interactions which are kind of like it.
I mean, the ice thing is exactly like the bubbles. The fire thing shoots it off like the bombs. The thunder thing moves it like a magnet. Like,
oh, but
I don't know. I think calling this a completely new thing is at best a stretch and at worst a little disingenuous.
I don't even know where to begin with this. I mean, even just in the footage we've seen, several intriguing technicalities were represented. That makes it extremely different from other things that we've seen behaving in the same manner, which, believe me, will become important later. But, oh well. In the meantime, we're here fighting this guy, who I don't know what he's doing here. This guy has clearly taken a wrong turn on the way to Dark Souls and landed in CrossCode. I don't understand. But,
another fucking guy with armor. Jesus Christ. Do they have any original ideas at FromSoft left?
Right. And he's like big and hulking, but deceptively fast. He hits real hard, he throws a shield, and the shield comes back. I cannot stress enough that the shield comes back.
Has Dark Souls actually done a boss like that? Because that sounds like that would actually be sick as hell to fight.
I certainly don't mind it here.
They've got to have done something like that in, like, I don't know. I never did play Dark Souls 3.
Also enjoy the direct link interface glitching a bit. I don't know what exactly causes that, but I thought I'd show it at least once. We've got to maintain our reputations, Emily.
Oh no. He's one of those people.
Well, that seemed ominous. Ah well, let's get on with this. It's like Jones says, this is pretty neat actually. The dungeon's full of these little overworld areas. And the overworld areas are, well, they're full of players. There's people here. Lynn and Albert are, of course, immediately going all in on the lore. We, of course, cannot actually even start this dungeon without getting the Ancient Shade first, but technically everyone else can. And these people did.
I mean, you know, they're right, though. If you were going to include this lock, you really should have just put it outside. That is kind of a dick move on the designer's front.
I mean, of Crossworlds. The designers of CrossCode did it right. I don't know how I should feel about this. So yeah, this bit opens up, you know, literally. The key to, if you're actually doing the race here, is not to get distracted. You might have noticed that, you know, I had some prime opportunities to go and fight some interesting new enemies in the first little overworld. And I didn't. Because, well, I'm only gonna make this with about 5 minutes to spare. The par time to beat Emily in Kulera Temple is 2 hours.
Now that is worrying.
We've got shit to do. Here's our first new enemy. These are Harmagnums. They are kind of irritating to fight, at least when you're not used to them. Because they have these sniper lasers. They come out real fast, they hit real hard, and you have to dodge them at more or less the exact right moment, and you have to dodge in the right direction. You literally have to dodge perpendicular to the beam. Otherwise it won't work. And their 2 attacks have 2 different timings on them. Also, the only way to damage them is by shooting them right after they fire a shot. And you have to hit them twice in order to actually get them vulnerable. They get 1 dodge for free after a shot and then they get stunned, but if it's not right after a shot, they will just dodge pretty much everything you can throw at them. There are a handful of ways to damage them, but none of them are really very good. I like that they go to the effort to just throw in these little details about the technical side of how Crossworlds actually manages itself. You know, like the meta lore. Anyway, we are going to be fighting some of those things eventually. Just...
I was gonna say, we seem to be pointedly avoiding a lot of these enemies.
Well, yeah, that's because it might take me more than a combined 5 minutes to fight enough of them to make it interesting, but they'll all get their turn. Alright, it's time to actually learn how these things work. The structure of the first layer of Kulera Temple is basically 1 room dedicated to teaching you about each of the elemental interactions with the blob. Shock, as you can imagine, makes it act like a magnet, but here's the really, really unbelievably important thing. When you hit the blob with a shock ball, the ball will travel towards you. This is not like those things in Vermilion Tower, where if you hit it with the right element, it moves it in the direction the shot came from. It moves towards you. Also, what if these things could interact with previous elements that we've seen before? As in, not just, you know, the damage elements, but the puzzle elements. What if these things combining with our previously witnessed puzzle elements caused interesting new things to happen? And never mind that, here's a bee-air bot. It's half bee, half bear, half bot. All trouble. Seriously, these things are, they require some specific tactics to deal with. Mostly they're, like the cows, they're invulnerable from the front. So you have to hit him in the back, but he's real good at turning towards you. But he does get distracted if you break the little beehives that he throws. They'll spill honey on the ground, he'll go and eat them, and that lets you hit him in the back.
It looks like he gets a small heal when he does that.
Oh yes, he recovers health. Not a whole lot. Just enough that when you fight these in the arena that it ruins your rank when they do it, but otherwise it's really a non-issue. There are other ways to hit him in the back. Some of them are even feasible. John has a point. This place does look pretty neat. Oh well, here's our cold tutorial. Cold makes the blob bounce along the ground, and we do mean along the ground. It is affected by gravity. And it's not like the bubbles, because the bubbles fall straight down when you freeze them, whereas these things bounce a tiny bit forward. And, you know, continue to follow the ground and the terrain and interact with things. This is very important for this part, because if you have that blob right above that trigger point and you hit it with ice, it will probably bounce off the wall and fall in the pit. So here's a new kind of puzzle fight. We've got shock and cold variants of these, although, you know, spoilers, they're going to come in fire and wave variants as well. They're turrets, they shoot projectiles at you, you know how combat works. But I did mention that this is a puzzle boss. So if you wind up with two of the same colour at the bottom, they will become invincible and do some really nasty attacks. You don't want this to happen. It's very much in your interest to pay attention to what colours are coming up and make sure you never get a combo. That said, each of these on their own is not very threatening. It's just that, you know, you've got to do the brain work while you're doing this.
Feels like introducing more elements would actually make that fight easier.
Well, you're not wrong on the basic level, but they do have ways. But yes, most of the time when you fight them they come in pairs. Anyway, we're not doing 4 of these bits in order. You might recall that we had a split path to choose from earlier, so each half gives us 2 elements, which we learn individually, and then we do a combined test. In particular, we're now combining these things with the bubbles. This thing combines pretty organically with with every other puzzle element. For the most part, the system with the puzzle elements in CrossCode is that each of them has some elemental interactions, and the blob has its own set of stock elemental interactions, and combining a thing with the blob overwrites the interactions of the blob with the interactions of the thing. And because all the elements are different, you can stack these things up pretty independently of each other. So here's a shock ball, and a blob, and a bubble. You do have to do it in the right order though, otherwise things get weird. So now we can teleport a bubble around. Also, I'm pretty sure this is not the expected way to do this, but I had some fun with it. Actually, that part of it is expected, but I have previously cleared this room without using the shock balls in this part.
That looks like that would be miserable.
Yeah, it was pretty quick actually, it just... one of the shots took a few attempts. Anyway, if you're doing the numbers in your head over the different interactions that we have available, and the different ways that they can possibly combine with these things, and the number of ways that we have of solving puzzles already, there might be a characteristic emotional blend brewing in your head that's some kind of a combination of fear and awe. At least that's how it was for me. You know, the pretty much exact target market for CrossCode, who knew exactly what they were getting into when they bought this and why. I paid my 15 local currency units for one purpose. I wished to experience peak CrossCode. And good lord, I got my money's worth. Now here's another one of these. Except this time he's on fire.
Ah, I see, this is Fume Knight. We're in Dark Souls 2.
As you can probably imagine, we're going to be seeing a couple of elemental variations of these. The fire one is kind of, like, actually the worst. It is probably the one that's going to kill you the most often, simply because the trail of flame left by that shield does so much passive damage, it will melt you in a couple seconds if you stand in it. It's real evil. Anyway, because these are supposed to be at least 20% puzzle fights, midway through the phases, he spawns an elemental barrier and we need to use the elemental blob to deal with it. The ice one isn't really much of a proposition, you just have to knock it into him. But future ones may get a little more interesting. Also, for how straightforward these guys' attack patterns are, there are an alarming number of creative ways of fighting them. Mostly involving how you get your opening. The thing that I find the most Souls-like about these things is that they stun relatively quickly, but they stay stunned for an extremely short period. So you've got to be ready, you've got to have a plan, you've got to know how you're going to get your opening and what you're going to do with it when you do. Anyway, it turns out that a pretty great way to manage the pacing of an enormous dungeon in a game that's historically had some issues trying to do dungeon pacing is to put some common overworlds in the middle of it. I believe we've talked previously about the possibility of Hexacast melee combat, and how fully featured it is or isn't. It turns out that, apparently, they actually did remember to give them some, and Albert is a fan.
I'm actually kind of surprised that there isn't some way to, like, I'm surprised that, like, from a game development perspective, that they didn't, like, actually give you a choice of class.
Yeah. I mean, the joke, such as it is that they pretty much did, because Ferromancer can do everything. That's kind of their deal. I think we're expected to believe that the other classes are basically just... can be approximated by some Spheromancer build. But, you know, in another universe where this game had about 3 times the budget that it did, and maybe even more development time somehow, we possibly could have seen a slightly more involved class system. Anyway, we can combine blobs with the bombs, and as previously discussed, what this means is that the blob, well, it gains the fire interaction that the bomb has. Also, it means that you can transport bombs, is what it means. Here's the portentously named Misery. I'm not really sure why it's called that, but what I am sure is that it's fire followed by a lightning elemental. Also, you may have noticed an idea occurring to me just then. Let's put a pin in that idea. We're going to revisit it later. Anyway, Misery's not very complicated. He throws elemental damage at you. You dodge away from it. When you hit him with the opposite element, it's really not... Don't overthink it. Here's Wave Blobs. Wave Blobs teleport. It's kind of a misnomer to say that Wave Blobs can teleport. What's actually happening here is that Wave Blobs can only teleport. It is the only way to move them with Wave. The other important observation is that, unlike when Leah teleports using Wave, the blobs teleport, well, they don't teleport, they travel along a line between where they are and where the teleport point is. And that's important because sometimes we'll need to put stuff in that line. And just like with the shot balls, we can combine the blob with wave balls. This pretty much means that we can move the blob through walls, where applicable. As you can imagine, this is about the kind of genre of these that starts becoming the most puzzle-like, rather than just simply resolving the inevitabilities that are on offer. Also, this is about the point during the game's development where we start seeing I think this is roughly when they actually figured out the correct amount of hints to give you via the floor markings. There have been a lot of times lately where the solution has pretty much just been spelled out on the floor. Also, it took me a minute to realise that you're actually supposed to go down that path, given the opportunity. This is actually timed. You can't just solve this and be done. You gotta stick with it. Eyes on the ball, folks. But yes, I am excited to reveal that Kulera Temple has exactly the correct amount of hints on the floor. It took a little while, but we got there. I wonder what it must be like to know those guys.
I suspect they are exactly like that, like, all the time.
Interesting tidbit, Felix. I mean, Satoshi. He's not wrong, though. That place does... Well, I mean, it's exactly like he said. I'm not going to repeat his little game design lesson. Here's a... choice puzzle.
The Roku blocks, everybody loves those.
Ah yes, another one of those nice views. There is some pretty stuff in this dungeon, but they're still doing that thing where they're like, hey, look at this amazing view. And it's nothing. But trust me, if we were seeing this in 3D, there'd totally be something incredible there.
Right, Leia is absolutely seeing an incredible view. Just please take our word for it.
Told you there'd be fire and wave versions of these. Anyway, a technicality that I should note is that you cannot damage anything other than the bottommost turret. Like, they just aren't there. It's not that they're invincible, it's that they just simply are not a combat entity. That said, there are some techs that are pretty good at doing continuous spot damage at a point. That will be well able to damage the new turrets as they fall into place. But there is no way to directly damage the upper turrets. It can't be done. Sorry. Now, once again, time to combine all our lessons. What I really like about specifically the shock and wave ball interactions is that they kind of flip your understanding of what the holes in the floor are about. Because it used to be that all they ever were obstacles. Like, these are the things that you need to get the shock and wave balls past. But now, the holes serve an exciting new function. They are blob teleport destinations. Everywhere where there's a hole in the ground is somewhere where you can possibly teleport the blob. It's extremely game design. I love absolutely everything about this place. It's so beautiful. Something about the way these unfold just... well, it sparks joy is what it does. I don't really have any other way of putting it. And the best part is, it's like... I previously have described this as being peak CrossCode, and, you know, as usual I did this only mostly ironically. But the simple fact is, this really is just all of CrossCode, all at once. It's the most CrossCode. It's every single thing that we've ever seen for the whole rest of the game, but brought back, remixed, dialed up to 11, and used to create something original, which works for new reasons and old reasons at the same time. It's honestly incredible what they've managed to build here. And it's almost enough to make me a little bit less angry about the wait. Anyway, this is the Ice Guardian. There's not really a whole lot to say about him, other than the shield paints the floor with ice, and the ice has the slippery physics, so watch out for that, but that's not really...
That's not really a threat, though. Like, the fire will kill you, obviously. And, like...
Yeah.
Admittedly, I'm gonna say, like, in, like, Shock... I don't know if we've seen the Shock one yet, but, like, the Shock one...
It makes you flinch.
Right, yeah, it gives you the paralysis effect. Ice doesn't seem like it really does anything. As far... other than being mildly annoying.
I mean, the real threat from him is the much more boring effect that we see on other things that use ice, where most of his attacks just make icicles appear. And those will impede you, they will block your shots, and they'll do a little bit of damage.
I see Instantainment is really making use of the draw distance here.
I mean, that's the thing. Your avatars are seeing stuff with what I presume are some kind of camera construction. Oh god, now I have to think about how avatars process vision. But I imagine it literally is just, essentially, like cameras. So, this is all built with real matter. There is no draw distance. Except we forget that sometimes, because like they never... The real ironic thing about CrossCode is they never, like, lean heavily into the VR game part of it. Oh well. We're contractually obliged to deliver a mid-boss. So here we go. A multi-elemental fight. Finally, one enemy that uses all the elements. At least a canon one. I mean, we already fought Gotham, but we're not going to acknowledge that. Anyway, this is oh man, I'm blanking on the name. Like Gwynthor or something? Something with a Gwyn in it.
God, this really is Dark Souls.
Yeah, right? That's why that was the bit that I remember.
Although that said, this guy gives me more of a Bloodborne kind of vibe than the others.
Yeah, it's the combination of all those weapons and also the ranged attacks. Anyway, I've been presuming she for a while, but I don't have any idea what their pronoun situation is. But anyway, there are a variety of elemental attacks incoming, and you might notice that as we get breaks, that one of the elements, well, it literally breaks. So as you work through a phase, the number of possible options that you're going to have to deal with restricts, and your job becomes a little bit easier. The flip side of this is that she doesn't have a huge vulnerable window, kind of like the armor guys actually. So it's not so much about queuing up a really big attack and doing a bunch of damage all at once, as it is about just surviving the fight, keeping the hits coming. Take the opportunities as you get them, and try to counter each thing. Unsurprisingly, that will help a lot. The result is that, strictly speaking, this is one of the most varied fights in the entire game. Like, the number of attacks that this single enemy can throw at you pretty much dwarfs, I think, literally every other boss in the entire game. And yet, the whole experience flows together and it's not overwhelming. It's just a real neat bit of design work, actually. Probably helps that we've established a character, so to speak, for each of the elements. Gungnir on the Thunderfall, by the way, is an excellent way of dealing a nice chunk of damage. Mostly because one of the things that likes to happen in this fight is you'll break her and then she'll get catapulted somewhere else, and you'll have to spend a valuable couple fractions of seconds moving over to where she's landed. But if you hit with something like Gungnir, you can just avail of all those free hits straight away. Anyway, final phase, all the gimmicks all together. And don't forget neutral. We got a fun neutral attack as well. This can take you by surprise. We literally almost died just then. That's a hell of a thing to just drop 2/3 into the fight, but I guess that's the level of game design we're rolling at now.
I mean,
come on, it's like the final dungeon.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I would argue that it is both kind of shitty game design, and also you're in the final dungeon of the post-game, of the DLC. At this point, what did you expect, really?
They're breaking out all the big guns. The thing is, it's not really that bullshit an attack when you break it down. It's a couple of lasers, they come out, there's a good half-second of telegraphing. It's not really arcane in how you deal with it. I have no idea how that didn't land. The thing is, it comes out and it takes you by surprise, and you're like, well, about a second ago I was at full health, and now I'm basically dead. And the attack isn't over. And that's how they get you. It's kind of it's difficult for me to arrive at a final opinion on. But let's keep it in mind how that worked, because it may come up again. Anyway, bottom line here, this is a fun, very dynamic encounter. It has a lot of stuff going on, and it manages to not feel overwhelming despite the amount of stuff that it has going on. It really rewards knowing what you're doing and being able to just keep on top of all this stuff. It's great. It is video games as hell. And with that, we may proceed.